Hello, everyone. Um, Welcome to the celebration of the newly released winter edition of Catamaran, our 39th issue of the magazine. And my name is Catherine Segerson. I'm the editor and the founder of Catamaran. I'm joined by Elizabeth McKenzie, the managing editor of the magazine. And we will be joined on screen by 14 different contributors in poetry and writing to this issue. Each will be reading for about 5 minutes. The cover of our new issue, this cover, is by Diane Pieri, a Philadelphia artist. It's a mixed media work titled Water, Land, and Sky, and it's a wonderful symbol of the topics we explore in this new issue. And so we will begin tonight's reading with Kateryna Mikhalitsyna, who is joining us live from Leliv, Ukraine. In this issue, Laima Vince interviewed Kateryna on how it has been like as a poet during wartime, as Kateryna's family remained in Lviv during the Russian invasion. Hannah Leliv is also here, and she translated Kateryna's poems from the Ukrainian for this issue. And so I'm just going to give you a little background on these three amazing writers and translators, and then we'll get started. Kateryna Mikhalitsyna was born in 1982 in Leliv, Ukraine. In 2009, she graduated in English Studies from the Ivan Franko National University of Lviv. She has served as editor and translator of the Astrolabia Publishing House and as deputy editor-in-chief of the Old Lion Publishing House. She has published 3 poetry collections and a number of children's books. And as a writer, editor, and translator, she took part in various literary projects and events, such as the All-Ukrainian ad reading. Kateryna will be joined by Hannah Leliv, who is a freelance literary translator from Lviv, and she was a Fulbright Fellow at the University of Iowa's Literary Translation Workshop and mentee at the Emerging Translators Mentorship run by the UK National Centre for Writing. In 2022, Stalking the Atomic City, Life Among the Decadent and Depraved of Chernobyl, a nonfiction book by Markian Kamish, was published in her translation by Astra House. And Laima Vince is currently working on a book titled Angel of Maiden, Ukrainian Women's Voices in War, about Ukrainian women's experiences in the war with Russia. She's the author of 6 works of literary nonfiction, a novel, 3 books for children, plays, and numerous literary translations from Lithuanian to English, including 2 poetry collections by Marcellus Martinaitis, winner of the Lithuania's National Prize. So please welcome Kateryna, Hannah, and Laima.
So, hello everyone. It's my honor to be here to join you. And actually, I'm very lucky because I suppose due to the Russian invasion in Ukraine, I am not supposed to have the light and electricity and everything, but now I have it. Probably it's a kind of just a sign from somewhere for me to be with you, to talk to you. Thank you everyone for asking me to be a part of all this literary event. It's really an honor. So as you've heard, I am a poet. I am a woman, a mother of 3 kids, and I am Ukrainian, which means I live in a country with a full-scale war going on for almost a year already. I never left my country except since the 24th of February, except for just a couple of weeks here and there, mostly to read to Ukrainian refugees, to meet on some kind of literary events and to speak of what's going on here. And yesterday I just came back for a trip I stay in Lviv, which is in western part of Ukraine, but yesterday I came back from my trip to Kiev region, which is Irpin, Borodyanka, the Bucha, the places I do hope you heard about. The places that was really suffering greatly from Russian occupations. I was in Izium and in Kharkiv region, so sometimes to write a poetry for me just means to to keep myself sane, because to cope with the reality we have now, sometimes for me is to name it, and to name it is my way is to write a poem. I'm really grateful for Laima and by the way, I went there to all the Kiev region things with the Lithuanian colleagues, poets and writers. They gave some really important help, volunteering help for Ukrainian military units, for Ukrainian writers. So it was not just a visit of moral support, but also real support in all possible way. And I'm proud to have Laima as my interviewer. I'm also proud to have Hanna as my translator, because she's brilliant in what she's doing. So thank you. And right now I will read the brand new poem about the situation we have, actually, because on the newly occupied territory of Kherson, new torture rooms were just discovered, and several of them are children's torture rooms. So here goes the poem. 2 Russian torture chambers for children have been discovered in Balaklia. What kind of words are scratched on their walls? What did children dig their fingers into to scratch them? To leave a trace of their lives, a trace of their fear, of their desire to live. No one will come pick you up, they told them, looking straight into their eyes. Your world is no more. We got no water for you, no food. Die, fucking Ukrainian. The earth is too large to carry you, little ant, on its skinlessness, on its naked heart of pain. 2 Russian torture chambers for children have been discovered in Balaklia. No, it's not a poem. It's a prayer about the hatred of the world that broke down, but still exists. And you take its fragments and continue to bear testimony. That's what you say. 2 Russian torture chambers for children have been found in Balaklia. The guilty must be punished. Contra spam sparrow. Thank you.
Ти сказав їм, що я із чийогось ребра, мій Боже німих дверей, і вони зрозуміли тебе надто буквально. Жінка – це завжди частина чогось, і ніколи не ціле. Вона як конструктор, який належиться розбирати, а потім перескладувати за своїм образом і подобою. Не схожим, до речі, на тебе, мій Боже, безгучного крику. А конструктор не має душі, якщо не сказано інакше, якщо хтось благий і великий не вдихнув туди душу. Але щоб дати, потрібно мати її самому. Тож виходимо з початкового. Конструктор не має душі, конструктор не має потреб, і тіла навіть не має, тільки вигини і западини, щоб допасувати їх до подібних собі, і щоб неподібний міг зробити їм боляче. Їм, то шматочкам конструктора, благий мій Боже, нерозтуленого рота і дірявої піхви, їм то мені, і всього, з чого я проминуще складаюся, шкірі, волоссю, воно ясно, що не болить, як росте, та болить, як його видирають, ребрам, грудям і горлу, білий мій Боже, безмежної тиші, з якої годі чекати рятунку, горло найбільше, бо воно забуває ім'я моє, забуває, як говорити, і як дихати теж уже забуває. І тому я, великий мій Боже, безберегої Чорноти, розмінна монета в твоїх стосунках із називанням. Я лежу тут, опріч дороги, зі зв'язаними білою полотниною зап'ястками, і дивлюся невидющими зіницями в небо. Дивлюся незмигно за себе і за всіх своїх посестер, щоби ти нас нарешті побачив і вивів із окупації.
You told them, I'm made from someone's rib, my God of mute doors, and they took your words too literally. A woman is always a part of something, never a whole. She's like a construction kit. One is supposed to take it apart and then put it back in one's image and likeness. They are not like yours, by the way, my God of silent screams. A construction kit has no soul. A construction kit has no needs. It doesn't even have a body, only curves and cavities to fit them to their likes, and for the unlike one to hurt them. Them, that is, the pieces of the construction kit. My merciful God of mouth closed and vagina gaping open. Them, that is me, and everything that I, a passing one, am made of. My skin, my hair, it doesn't hurt when growing, but it hurts being torn out. My ribs, my breasts and throat, my white God of infinite silence that offers no rescue, my throat most of all, as it forgets the name of mine, as it forgets how to speak and how to breathe, so that I, my great God of shoreless blackness, a bargaining chip in your relations with naming, I am lying here by the roadside, my wrist tied with a white piece of cloth, my blank eyes staring into the sky, staring without blinking for myself and all of my sisters, so you'd finally see and lead us away from the occupation.
Мамо, а сонце все ще існує? Скажи, чи є тільки ця стеля з кіптяви та іржі? Мамо, а можна буде на вулиці якось покопати м'яч? А вулиця є ще? Мам, ну чого ти? Не плач. Він просто малий, тому і питає таке. Язик без кішток же, в роті гидке і гірке, зло набирається, лускає і болить. З чорної стелі стежка води біжить. В чорному кутику чорний дрімає павук. Дядько Іванко не має обидвох рук. Дядьку Іванкові 20 з малим хвостом. З чорної стелі сиплеться страх піском. Хоч би вціліла, хоч би тримала ще сіці життя тендітні павучим своїм плащем. Звідси до ранку сотні хресних доріг, став на свою не скигли, кожен із нас би міг бути не тут і не зараз, зовсім не тим, ким є. Хлопчику мій, шепоче, м'ячик твій десь же є, сонце співає з неба вишням і мурашні, нам же молитись треба тихій оцій стіні, стелі оцій прогірклі, чорні, але міцні. Хлопчику мій маленький, нумо, молися їй.
A prayer to the ceiling. Mama, is the sun still there? Tell me. Or is there only this ceiling of grime and rust? Mama, can I kick a ball about on the street someday? Is a street still there? Oh, Mama, don't cry, please. He's just a kid asking things like this. The tongue has no bones after all. The evil, beastly, and bitter swells up in the mouth. It pops and hurts. A trail of water runs down from the black ceiling. A black spider is napping in the corner. Black. Uncle Ivanko has no arms. Uncle Ivanko is a little more than 20. Fear crumbles down, sand-like, from the black ceiling. Please let it survive. Please let it hold all these fragile lives in its spidery coat. From here till dawn, hundreds of Via Dolorosa. Once you step onto yours, don't whine. Any of us could be not here, not now, not the one we are. My dear boy, she whispers back, your ball lives somewhere out there. The sun sings from the skies to the cherry trees and the ants. What we must do is pray to this silent wall, to this rancid ceiling, black but strong. Come on, dear boy, pray to it.
Thank you so much. Just to have a chance to say it. So thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Well, our next reader is Jeremy Ra. Jeremy Ra is a queer Chinese, a Korean American poet living in Los Angeles. His poems have appeared or will appear in I-70 Review, Cultural Daily, and San Diego Poetry Annual, among others. He was a finalist for the Pan America Emerging Voices Fellowship in 2021. And his first chapbook is forthcoming from Mood Tide Press. The poem in this new issue of Catamaran was the winner of the 2022 Morton Marcus Poetry Prize. Please welcome Jeremy Ra. Here he is.
Hi, thank you. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you. That was such an honor to hear you, Kateryna. Something you said in the chat actually reminded me of one of my favorite lines that William Carlos Williams actually wrote. And he said, it is difficult to get the news from poems, yet men die miserably every day for lack of what is found there. And I just thought that that courage of like being able to convey to us and, put in a more of a permanent record of what is going on is so powerful. So thank you for that. This poem is about my childhood, and it's called Dumplings. It starts with an epigraph. Dumplings, or as it's called in Chinese, 饺子, were originally referred to as tender ears because they were used to treat frostbitten ears. On a frosty morning, the family separates the dough into small wrappers, fills them with a pinch ball of pork rolled with scallions, sauce, and chives. With water, we seal the dough into half moons, over and over till the swelling dumplings fill the counter. It is not money that makes a family rich. The gods have settled into the kitchen, and we have been crowded ever since. I can never grab the pinch quite right, so the half moons don't keep their pregnancy in the boiling water. My grandmother always eats the half moons I ruined first. She alone is left to remember the journey the family made on the boat to reach Seoul from Shandong. The dumplings, the only heirloom she could carry. With an air of constant mourning for a son, she is quiet and has no favorites. My uncle says, so any story we tell can never be untrue. With each chatter thrown into the dinner pyre, she buries a lot more than a son over and over. The chives are potent, but not enough to ward off the dead. Our relatives who dance with the steam in the distance. We know the shapes of laughter and mime them. My grandmother hangs with the chive ghost in the air. She stares at me with a self-devouring gaze, divided from me by several oceans. She holds my hands to unwrap the half moons, fills my ear with dumplings. Thank you so much for this event and having me. I'm holding this beautiful issue of Catamaran that actually arrived not too long ago. I've been thoroughly enjoying reading through all of it. Catamaran conference is actually one of the first writing conferences I've ever been to, so this kind of feels like a full circle moment to me. I'll do one more poem that's also about where I grew up, which is South Korea. This one is called They Could Only Watch. We bought a Christmas tree, but my parents instead gathered at my aunt's house where the pagoda's once verdant roof had peeled and rattled under the gait of the cats who hovered like guardians of a tomb. Every winter, the neighbors left in front of the gate a sacrifice of birth-blind kittens in a plastic bag, so often that at Christmas the newborn kittens had become the gifts I expected when I got to the house. And my aunt's dog, who raised litter after litter of kittens like her own, always came slobbering like it didn't know how to stop living. In the dining room, the incenses burned before a portrait of a woman who hadn't been able to stop dying. The heat from the hot pot erased Santa and every amen, for I never questioned this was my world, even though it was not what I saw in the subway ads showing families in red hats cooking on electric grills. Even as my parents took me back to my cold apartment in clothes that smelt of fish and ash, a tense Christmas tree stood at the doorway with a present underneath that I could not bring myself to open because I was always burning, even in winter. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Intermission? I'm just kidding.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. Yeah, it was wonderful to meet you at the conference and to see how many things you're doing with your poetry. So
Thank
for being
you.
with us.
Thank you, Catherine.
Our next reader is Tobi Pledger. Tobi Pledger is an avian and exotic veterinarian and aspiring writer from Texas. She currently lives in North Carolina. Please welcome Tobi Pledger.
Thank you. I enjoyed both of those, and I really admire people who can write poetry because I really can't. My short story is called As the Crow Flies. Call me Ishmael. I'm joking. I simply cannot relate to his affinity for the sea. I do, however, share Captain Ahab's obsession with a great white beast, in my case, a man named Daniel. I hatched in a tree behind his house. Early on, a clutchmate nipped off one of my toes. I never learned why. It was my first experience with violence and theft, but, as Nietzsche said, what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. My first months out of the nest were devoted to learning the rules of survival every American crow is taught, including a deep distrust of humans. Despite their heretofore benign track record with local crows, Daniel and his wife would be the subject of ongoing surveillance. The week they brought home a baby, I commenced stealing, anticipating their distraction. I helped myself to the It's a Girl Mylar balloons tied to the mailbox and preened for hours using their mirror-like surface. They've been deflated for years now, but their crinkled, shiny carcasses still decorate a branch in one of my favorite roosting trees. After that, I took anything that caught my fancy: coins, screws, polished stones, beer tabs, bottle caps, buttons of all shapes and sizes, and larger items that tested the strength of my wings, including a Broil King stainless steel spatula Daniel left near the grill. I made short work of the lumps of grilled ground sirloin that clung to it. The crowning gem of the treasure trove, the item I kept closest at hand, was the white gold pocket watch I'd filched when Daniel had carelessly left it unattended on his chair. Apparently it had been his father's. I quickly grew bored with the required daily winding, leading to cessation of the Swiss movement. While he had the watch, Daniel would open and then snap it closed compulsively. I found the clicking soothing and addictive. I squandered a significant chunk of my time opening and closing the timepiece. I observed Daniel searching in vain for the watch, but felt no remorse. You snooze, you lose. Last summer, Daniel built a tree house for his daughter. She climbed in a few times, but didn't appear impressed. Instead, she spent her outdoor time kicking a soccer ball around. In her absence, I stashed overflow inventory in the treehouse and waited out rainstorms under its eaves. In the bitter cold of winter, I retreated to the carpeted area to warm my feet and quiet the throb of my phantom toe. Seemingly fascinated by us crows, which boosted my opinion of her immensely, the girl frequently attempted communication with a mix of words and ululations. The caterwauling was neither melodious nor accurate, but I applauded the effort. Daniel and his wife argued with increasing frequency. Doors were slammed. Often Daniel would retreat to the deck after work and sit sipping beer. One evening, Daniel's wife came out carrying a cocktail. Its little paper umbrella eventually ended up in my collection. Holding her chunky knit cardigan closed with her left hand, she gulped down the drink and said, "I want a divorce. I'm taking Sarah to live with Mom." I would miss Sarah. After his family left, if Daniel wasn't at work, he was ensconced on the deck drinking whiskey. He yelled into his phone and at us, sometimes squeezing off random blasts from his air horn, 120 decibels of obnoxiousness. Christmas came and went. No one visited. He got angrier, settling into a generalized hatred of the world. When we were noisy, he would fire at us with a cheap BB gun. Thankfully, he was no marksman, especially after a few swigs. When a neighbor ventured over to grizzle about his disruptive behavior, he shot back. I chose a neighborhood without an HOA, so I could do whatever the hell I wanted. He had a permanent scowl on his darkly stubbled face. Leery of him and his gun, I visited his deck to shop for baubles only early in the morning while he slept it off. If he left an open whiskey bottle next to his chair, I'd steal the screw cap and knock the bottle over, hoping he'd get the hint. He just bought more. That's it. That's not the end, but that's all I'm reading. So, cliffhanger.
Thank you, Tobi. Yeah,
Thank you.
everybody, please read the rest of this story. It's a wonderful story. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'm pleased now to introduce Nan Cohen. Nan Cohen's books are Rope Bridge, Unfinished City, winner of the Michael Dryden Award from Gunpowder Press, and a chapbook, 1,000-Year-Old Words. Her poems and prose have appeared recently in Tupelo Quarterly, Rhino, and Electric Literature. The recipient of a Wallace Stegner Fellowship from Stanford University and a Literature Fellowship from the National Endowment for the Arts, she co-directs the Napa Valley Writers Conference poetry programs and lives in Los Angeles, California. Please welcome Nan Cohen.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth and Catherine. Tobi, I love the voice of that story, and I'm already so moved by everything that I've heard tonight. I'm going to share just a short love poem that appears in this beautiful issue of Catamaran. It's called Lyric and Narrative, and it just kind of comes out of my thinking about lyric versus narrative, I guess, the lyric song of a poem, the narrative of making a story. Lyric and narrative. I have given up on making us a story because of how you always wreck it, driving another story into its side. And then the wreck becomes the story. Instead, I have made us a song. No time, no place, no incident. Unless, like this, a walk in the dark, a wedge of moon, and, swaying invisible between us, our clasped hands. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Nan. That's a beautiful poem. I'm so glad you read that. Our next presenter is Martin Perlman. and he is a writer living in Seattle, Washington. His previous published work has been included in Rosebud, Santa Barbara Connections, and Drash, Northwest Mosaic. He also wrote a whimsical novel, Thinks Out Loud, a blog at first. Please welcome Martin Perlman.
Well, hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. I know people are saying that, but it is true. And I'm happy to be a part of this. This is a short story. And there's a narrator in the future attempting to describe what it was like to attempt to find a certain volume in a bookstore. This is pre-Amazon. Here we go. This is the opening. Bookworm's Desire. Why am I continuing to harp on this? Probably habit, and perhaps a desire to correct a wrong. When Rummaging Among the Platitudes was published as what was then known as a hardback, a certain category of reading enthusiasts took note. Remember, this was before Book Brain, Flux, and Neural Face. Printed books were the connector then. As word spread through letters, snail mail, phone calls, and personal conversation, Rummaging found an audience of free thinkers, political and social outsiders, and even a classic book lover or two. Describe the book. That's not easy. One kind reviewer called it a vigorous reinterpretation of epistemological concerns, half fiction, half lyric, half claptrap. Time magazine, RIP, proclaimed it a giddy experience, a dance of verbal inventiveness, exclamation point. Printers Monthly, deceased, focused not on the contents, but the book itself, lauding its handsome design, the text set in noble Caledonia, and printed on acid-free paper with sewn bindings made endure through the centuries. In the case of Rummaging's, booksellers said the book's lack of definition made it challenging to categorize, and that can limit sales, as research has shown. Most consumers prefer distinct labeling rather than having to deal with ambiguous shades of gray. So, where to put the book was the question. A few select stores propped it up on the new release table, while others relegated it to the self-help section. The more pragmatic quickly banished it to the discount bin. Also on sale in adult toy shops, the book apparently did well when its racier passages were highlighted. None of these marketing decisions did the book justice. A search for the book would go like this. You would enter a non-chain, or what was then called an independent bookstore. A dozen or so people would be browsing, some others leafing through magazines along the wall closest to the sales counter. You might circle the store, although Rummaging would rarely, if ever, reveal itself. Backtracking to the front counter, you would wait for the clerk to finish ringing up a mystery, cookbook, or exercise tome. You would ask about the title, and if the clerk wanted to have fun, he or she, pre-theism, would act as though the book were an unknown entity. If we can find the title in our publisher's catalog, we could special order it for you, he or she would say with a sly smile. Could have it shipped right to you within a week to 10 days. No, you would say. No, thank you. Well, good hunting. Now, why would a clerk not want to send you to the book? You hoped it was somewhere in the store. What kind of game was this? Wasn't the point of business to sell books? Pretending to stifle a yawn, you would linger among the bestsellers and then exit the store, walk down the street past gift shops and banks and clothing stores. While you strolled, you developed a theory about the clerk's odd behavior. It had to do with failed personal dreams, petty jealousy, and a dose of irrationalism. As you knew all too well, failed writers often end up working in bookstores. Not a good idea because they are surrounded by the successes they will not achieve. Frustrated, Some of them play games with their customers. The book sits in that store, you conclude. You reverse course. The clerk had vacated the counter. Perhaps he or she was on break and reading that very book in a back room. You roam, true, yet roam with a purpose. You inhale deeply. Independent bookstores smelled good. A heady mix of print and paper scents accented with a touch of mustiness. Down this aisle and that one, no luck. It goes on. But I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Martin.
All right.
This is another story that everyone must read to its end. Well, now I'd like to introduce Candace Calsoyas. Candace's latest calling is Greece, where she investigates yet another meaning of place. She has written about women's relationships to land, taught environmental literature at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and traveled to Bhutan, Albania, and Greece, all on Fulbright scholarships, to teach and coordinate environmentalism. She is the owner of La Pajarosa Tree Farm, a fenceless wildlife habitat in Corralitos, where she practices coppicing Christmas trees, the age-old practice of pruning the old to generate the new, and also, which is also a metaphor for preservation and continuity. She's also a contributing editor of Catamaran Literary Reader. Please welcome Candace Calsoyas.
Thank you, Elizabeth. It seems like my lifelong pursuit has been about sense of place, which was very much popularized when I was a graduate student at UCSC. And in grad school, I looked at women's sense of place in literature. And I wrote about all kinds of relationships, but it seemed to me that I was drawn to the women who had the most important relationships with place, which superseded human relationships. And I started to realize that that was part of my own track. On my tree farm, I developed a sense of place in which I tried to have the least impact upon the land. And over the years, I've thought greatly about how not to put up fences, how not to build retaining walls, how not to asphalt driveways, and how to leave land ungated, which I've tried very hard to do. The piece I will read is called Erasure in America. And I've transferred my sense of place and my attachment to Greece to better know my grandparents and my own ancestral heritage. And I don't know what story will unfold about this place. I know that the land I've been on in Corralitos for many years has given me many moments of epiphany and realization. I'm not sure what will happen in Greece, but I figure that the fourth quadrant of life, that is between 60 and 80, it should be about not what the other ones have been about. Not about security, not about job, not about family. It should be about something different. And I've chose that difference to be in Greece and see what the culture and heritage of my family looks like, because I've had so little contact. So I'm pursuing title to my grandfather's lands in Greece to preserve an iota of cultural heritage. And I think that place can persist in ways that very few things can. And that's part of my agenda in establishing the house and rebuilding the house in Greece. So this is Erasure in America. The search for my cultural heritage was an illusory, vague desire. But when I saw this stone house, so obscured by vines and wild figs and stinging nettles, it seemed that I was to become the self-appointed excavator of my grandparents' past. Armed with clippers and loppers, I began the process of tearing into the overgrowth that had buried the house. What was being excavated here? A microscopic history of place, no longer cared for or understood. Its history, perhaps after centuries, was over, with no memory left aside from my 102-year-old aunt, whose lucid mind still held scenes of her childhood at the house, which she described in Greek in detail. Going back to one's roots is to look beneath the fabric of modern culture, returning to bare threads of those born in a place of cultural origin. To imagine my ancestors as babies, little kids, people who walked to the fields taking their sheep. Poor people. As I cleared the land, the neglect was so apparent in the amount of garbage dumped over the stone walls. How was so much dumped over those tall walls, I wondered? Some places on the land were 3 feet deep in litter, which crunched underfoot. While collecting and stacking old 1-gallon kerosene cans, plastic bottles, and even a machined steam press, I ruminated. Maybe there was never a place for my grandparents in America. After all, the land was stolen from indigenous people. Had they not been so desperate, would people have left their countries only to lose their own culture in assimilation? Perhaps they were never meant to bring their figs and quinces to California. Maybe few emigrated because they really wanted to be here, and only because it was worse in their countries. Here again was a reason to reestablish something of my grandparents in their own land. On the last day in the village, I wanted to leave a mark on the land, a remembrance of my grandparents. So I planted a Greek fir tree and a jasmine plant close to the cistern. I drew images on paper and paid tribute to Maria and Demos. I'm going back to my grandparents, the sentimental feeling. Posting the drawings on the plant's branches. At that moment, I decided that not only had I brought the spirit of my grandparents back to their home, but I had repainted the past. The sentiment evolved into sanctifying the land to deter the dumping of plastics, cans, shoes, and machinery. I hoped that tending the land would have some effect, that maybe villagers were still superstitious and would be thwarted by the return of the Greek Americans. The dear man Pericles, who had a ma and pop taverna near the village, shed a tear when I told him I had brought my grandparents, their ashes, back to the village. For a moment, I regretted myth-making, but I was determined to start a cycle of reverence to establish the historical significance of the land. I hoped Pericles wouldn't mind my little fib, and I knew he would spread the word. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. That was great. Okay, our next reader is Ken Holland. Give me a minute to invite Ken. Okay, Ken Holland recently received New Ohio Review's 2022 Poetry Prize, judged by Kim Adonisio, and was a finalist for the 2022 Laskow Prize in Poetry and was a semifinalist for the 2022 Able Muse Write Prize. He's been widely published in literary journals and various anthologies, and has been nominated 3 times for the Pushcart Prize. He spent his rent paying years working for various New York City publishers and he lives in the mid-Hudson Valley of New York. Oh, here we are. Okay. Your video is not on, I don't think. I'm going to try this again. I'm going to take you off and do another invite because we only had your sound. Okay. Your video doesn't seem to be working, but your sound is on.
So you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Well, it's probably better this way.
Okay.
No worries. So yeah, no, I will, in sort of incognito, do my reading.
Okay, perfect.
And Candace, I actually went to Greece for the first time a couple of months ago for a couple of weeks, and how can one not fall in love? So I've got 5 minutes, 3 poems, and no face, so that's all good. So the first poem is the Catamaran poem, and thank you, Elizabeth and Catherine, for it. It's called All I'll Never Know. Used to bother me to know there were things I'd never know. The exact year our sun would begin to nova, or where a particular molecule of water fell from cloud to ocean. How much my mother's sadness was cloud, how much of it ocean. Was my father's silence the air through which she swam? Why I am moved by colors that rain down green, and how is it I hear them breathe? How breath comes from life, but is not life itself? Is it then mist, set carefully adrift, burning with loss? And how is it all that I've lost speaks in a voice lodged between sleep and awakening? And should I not awaken when the dogs huff in hunger? Who will carry me the rest of the way? And does it trouble me to know all I'll never know no longer troubles me at all? So the next poem, with all due respect and apology to Walt Whitman, it's titled, I Sing the Body Blue. Come on, babe. These are waves frozen in Lake Huron. This is winter singing like a castrato. Stars are shedding their light at the speed of God, and the earth is turning away like a shy spinster. Constellations hurtling apart till they'll have disfigured the myth of their shape. The way autumn has escaped with its cartography of colors, the final burn of its breath. Industrial cities are strung out along the shore, demanding their due of America's rust and bounty. Steam from factory stacks is punched down by the frigid weight of air. Power grids ride the circuitry of our bodies, illumine the flash of our hearts. I'm not here to mythologize the electric leaves of song. This is not that century. For we're now bound in by that which once appeared boundless, vistas obscene in their limitless depths, blast furnaces burning away the impurities of iron to spill forth steel. Like a thoroughbred pressed once too hard toward an unsustainable victory, we now carry the mark of a cripple. Motionless in a field of ice-stunted grass, the animal's rhythmic breath distills as white vapor into the blue air. The sky cradling winter in its arms. These the last hours to stand reverent before a country that yet carries grace in its stillness. In the sculpted arrest of Huron's waves. In myths and constellations, the architecture of America. So I think I can get in under my 5 with a short third poem, if I may. Sort of a consolation prize for no face for me. It's called The Heart and the Hunt. A moment, please. A moment to rest my vision, to attest to the murmur confiding in my veins. The moon is hobbled with age and slow walks across this valley, leaning into what's sad and vulnerable. It seems any hawk might carry it away as the night rises with its 3-chambered heart, its cool-blooded skin, the way any hunt begins, wings folding across the sky, the encircling of the moon in its archaic arc of flight. I pull hard on the slope of my thoughts. I have only so much time. There is only so much light. Thank you all for listening. It's been really a joyful moment. We don't have enough of those. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken. Even though we couldn't see you, you read really beautifully. So thank you for your reading. Our next reader is Pepper Trail.
Hi. Oh, I have a picture of Ken I wanted to share. So, okay. It's a pleasure now to introduce Pepper Trail. Pepper Trail's work has appeared in Catamaran, Atlanta Review, Rattle, Ascent, and other publications, and has been nominated for the Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net. His collection, Cascade Siskiyou Poems, was a finalist for the 2016 Oregon Book Award in poetry. He's recently retired from a career as a biologist with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and he lives in Ashland, Oregon. So, please welcome Pepper Trail.
Hi, I'm not sure if, okay, I got a message that I'm on. There were some technical difficulties before, so I can't see myself when I'm on, so I'm hoping to be to be visible to you all. Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. As a naturalist and writer in the Southern Oregon region, one of my main preoccupations has been the health of the Klamath Basin and the Klamath River, which are some of the most important wetland and river systems in the western U.S. And my prose poem from this issue of Catamaran deals with the river, and then I will read a short poem about the Klamath Basin. At Big Bar, Klamath River. The river is a myriad. So little of its water has been with it from the beginning. Where it arose from snowmelt and deep fossil springs, that slender waterfall across the way, braiding its way down through the moss and the bank-binding alder roots, is just now joining the procession, 200 miles from the start. The river carries all it has gathered in its life, the fish, the feathers of duck and swan, the dung of cows, the poisons from the acres of onions and potatoes, the heat that rises year by year, adds up by the mile. The river is newborn and ancient, ever-changing and eternal, always approaching and ever passing away. Like the mountains it breaks, like the trees it nourishes, the river is a gift given, a thing we could never create, but can always destroy. And this second poem is about a terrible drought that is currently afflicting the Klamath Basin, which is one of the most important migratory stopovers for birds on the Pacific Flyway, a drought which has completely dried up the large lakes that the waterfowl depended on. Klamath Basin, drought. I have swallowed a stone, heavy as the earth, I cannot stand from the weight of it, can even almost not breathe. This grief, heavy as the earth, here on the rim of a horizon in pieces, dry and cracked, the dead lakes, corpse, coffin, and grave. Insects strike my face, water boatmen, easy swimmers, driven into the awkward air, signaling with their flailing arms the name of their vanished world. They struggle onward and are gone. There were ducks, geese, swans, herons, egrets, cranes, pelicans, cormorants, grebes, rails, gulls, ibis, harriers, wrens, forever of this place, now of nowhere. I have swallowed a stone. It tastes of nothing, the nothing that remains. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pepper. Great reading. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Matthew Meduri. Matthew Meduri is a writer and educator living in Kent, Ohio, with his wife, 2 children, and 2 old dogs. His work has recently appeared in Gastronomica, Permafrost, Story, and the anthology The Experiment Will Not Be Bound. He is a recipient of a 2022 Individual Excellence Award from the Ohio Arts Council. So please welcome Matthew Meduri.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to read 2 brief sections from my collage essay titled Shoreless Shorebird, which is about the killdeer. We erroneously called them sandpipers, a mistake made perhaps because from a distance they moved and sounded like sandpipers. Maybe I just didn't know what sandpipers looked like at the age of 7 or 8. Their long, skinny legs carried them swiftly like the bird from the Roadrunner cartoons, while appearing to travel with the erratic directionality and speed of a wind-up toy. The high-pitched staccato eep-eep of both birds sounded the same to us. This small, agitated bird preferred to run and peck at the ground rather than fly from place to place. Their habitats were so similar: open grasslands, riverbeds, mudflats, lakeshore, though in our yard there was no sand or water to be found. There was plenty of muck thanks to the poor drainage that my dad eventually corrected by digging out hundreds of feet of oddly buried PVC pipe. Our home, situated in the glaciated Allegheny Plateau region of northeastern Ohio, was an area in rural suburbia among housing developments, rolling farmland, marsh, and woodlands, an ideal environment for their existence. Those sandpipers love building nests among the weeds and crabgrass that peek through the center ribbon of our limestone gravel driveway. Maybe my mother called them sandpipers because she thought it sounded nicer than killdeer, a name that seemed more like a directive she didn't want her two sweet little boys, sons of a pastor, hearing. To a family of non-hunters, those terms were usually reversed and in the past tense, often referring to some poor, lifeless creature slumped on the side of the road, a product of a collision, a casualty of velocity, migration, human development, and split-second reaction. Maybe she just didn't realize the difference. The birds always sounded like they were in distress. They didn't sing a cheerful song like the cardinals or bluebirds, nor were they loud brass like the blue jays or the wrens. Just the sharp, repetitive cry, almost sad at times, though I could just be remembering it as such. I'd wonder whether it was being pursued by predators, a hawk, a fox, the coyotes, or the lawnmower. There was a mean turkey a few doors down that always got loose and gave us a good scare, chasing and gobbling at my brother and me. We probably deserved it, looking back, since we always chased the sandpipers, though never with malice. The way they ran had that mechanical toy quality that amused us to no end. It really felt more like a game and less like an intrusion. It wasn't until later that I learned those little black-collared grassland shorebirds, who always seemed to be watching us, were called killdeer. And this section is titled Foraging for Scraps. I pieced together these stories from scraps, anecdotes, artifacts, observations, scientific data, historical documents, photographs, folklore, reports, etc. Like the killdeer forages for its next meal or assembles its home. Every bird is one bird to us. We never desire to know who or what it was and is. Its behavior never changing, only adapting as we search, invade, destroy, develop, take and take and take, a little bit more, kill, make laws, neglect, make more laws, manage, manufacture, profit, loosen restrictions, forget, and conserve. Its nest hidden in plain view, just a shallow depression in the ground created by its digging, the scraping away of soil and sand, camouflaged by whatever is available, stones, broken glass, twigs, tiny skeletons of insects and small animals, or shredded corn husks. The nested eggs are a mosaic, an assemblage like Joseph Cornell's bird boxes. It searches in cultivated farmlands, driveways, airports, athletic fields, golf courses, gravel and broken asphalt parking lots, and rooftops, between railroad ties and among our garbage, eating insects infused with chemical runoff cocktails that keep lawns unnaturally and idiotically manicured, our artificial landscapes looking fresh. Although one of the most ubiquitous and successful shorebirds to exist in human-modified environments, killdeer often live in harm's way. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. I really enjoyed your piece a lot, and it's a great collage of stuff. So thank you. It's a pleasure now to introduce Melissa McKinstry. She holds an MFA in poetry from Pacific University, recently nominated for Best of the Net, a Pushcart Prize, and Orison's Best Spiritual Literature. Her poems have appeared in Rattle, Alaska Quarterly Review, Rust and Moth, December, Tahoma Literary Review, SWWIM, and are forthcoming in Beloit Poetry Journal. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, I've been struck this evening by so much beautiful work and how we use our work to hold the memory of a landscape, even if that landscape is no longer existing. And when I was working on my MFA at Pacific University, I had the good fortune to work with the poet Marvin Bell. And during my time with him, my dad passed away. And one of the gifts Marvin gave me was to send me a bit of Yiddish wisdom. And that was a saying that goes like this: if you can't get up, get down. If you can't get across, get across. And he really encouraged me to use my work, my poems, to hold a kind of resilience and a memory of a landscape of my father, who was no longer there. And this poem in the beautiful winter edition of Catamaran, thank you, Catherine and Elizabeth, is an homage to my dad and his love of music. And it's called Break Down, It's All Right, title after Tom Petty. I speed past the mile marker for hellhole palms, just the place to shed what's wound round my chest like a too tight skin. The way my dad's fading, face pale as ashes, mostly asleep. The way one eye cries even when he's not crying. I think he knows it's time to mourn. What do we speak of when no one speaks the truth? We chat about the morning chill, high tide, vegetable soup for lunch. Meanwhile, his eye, brown and long-lashed, loads and overflows again and again. I want nothing more than to go back to when he wore Harris tweed to work. Always the soft folds of a white handkerchief in his pocket. Where are those small flags now? I want to find one so old it's frayed. I want to dab the corner of his eye with great tenderness. I want to say thank you. Yes, I want the truth I want, and not the truth that is. And that is the hammer of sadness pounding on me as I close in on the Anza Borrego Desert. I'm singing Breakdown with Tom Petty, hurling it out the window. There is no sense in pretending. When his last show echoed in the hills of the Hollywood Bowl, no one knew he'd be dead on Monday. As I sight the far side of each curve down the Banner grade, just the way Dad taught me, I feel the tires grip the road. Tom and I belted out into the hot, dry air. I can face it. I can take it. It's all right. The words stick in Ocotillo barbs, and one boulder lifts into the sky, a waxing gibbous like a ghost over Ridgeback Mountains. The soft light shifts. I want, I want, I want, casts a spell. And I swear I see Dad now, with Tom on the side of the road. They swagger again in their Levi's and white tees, their black leather jackets. I crest the Yaqui Pass, and as I pass, they flash horsey grins and big thumbs up. They shine. Then, like another mirage, the Santa Rosas appear, lavender and coral beyond the Salton Sea. Doves rise from Palo Verde, all gray and green, under a gauze of clouds pulled due east for centuries. Go ahead and give it to me, I shout, like I'll never back down again. And one more poem this evening is one that was published in Swim, and it's for my son. His name is Charlie. For Charlie in his wheelchair by the evening window. And if an owl came to perch on your sill, razor beak and talon feet, feather and vowel, lanterns for eyes, dropping 5 questions like molten silver into the cool night air, you'd turn your blue gaze toward him in answer. You would teach him all about being bound, the shiver of the rabbit tricked in a trap, with only the breeze free in your ears. He would teach you about wings, glittering fingers spread over green trees, You both know the hard truth, the intractable instinct to survive, the hum of the earth, its endless shiver. Thank you so much. It's so great to be part of a celebration of art, and the imagery in this issue is just so evocative.
Thank you, Melissa. What a beautiful reading. Our next reader is Ted Rooney, second to last. It's just been a wonderful to see everyone and hear everyone tonight. Ted Rooney has an MFA in creative writing from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, and he teaches writing and literature at Wentworth Institute of Technology in Boston, Massachusetts. Please welcome Ted Rooney.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to Catamaran for including me, both in the issue and in this reading. It's a great pleasure to be participating tonight. I apologize if my voice is a bit hoarse. I'm recovering from a nasty cold. The story I'm going to read from is called Tracks by a Creek, Rustle in the Bush. It's about a man who has spent his life looking for Bigfoot. I'm going to read the first few pages. It's a very long story, but I think that the beginning gives you a flavor for it. Hike the whole Sasquatch Trail. Hell, hike each and every inch of land from San Diego to Alaska. Do it so many times the trees are like road signs and the birds twitter hello. Discover all the Sasquatch hotspots, have the evidence to prove it, a seashell collection's worth of footprint casts, and enough of that wiry black hair to make a fur coat, the likes of which you've never seen. It won't make a difference. Know Sasquatch better than you know your best friend. Know that he loves to swim, that he gobbles up blueberries like they were candy, that he does almost anything to avoid being seen and absolutely anything to avoid being caught, including flinging himself into a gorge. It won't make a difference. See him 10, 50, 100 times, more than your wife. Hell, have Sunday dinner with him every week. You think that'll make a difference? No. I tell you right now, it won't make a damn lick. To make it in this business, you got to have the letters. PhD, MD, whatever it is a vet's got. You have to be what they think is a scientist. Of course, not that you'd ever do anything as ridiculous as setting foot on the Sasquatch Trail, but if by some crazy chance you did, you'd have to be their kind of scientist for it to get you anywhere. When I first heard about the job at the Center for Bigfoot Studies, Bigfoot. They actually use Bigfoot. It makes him sound like a circus freak. I didn't figure I'd even try for it. The Natural History Museum of California emailed the press release to my website, Squatch Watch. The second I saw the sender and subject heading, I got this little flutter of excitement. The verbiage in the press release was highfalutin, an unprecedented, groundbreaking project, a 3-year center dedicated to the search for and research on Bigfoot, sponsored by a respected institution, etc., etc. They needed a director. Extensive experience and scientific credentials required. Nice plum for some PhD, huh, guys? I said to the dogs lying on the floor behind me, and I posted the announcement on the website. I've been looking for Sasquatch for nearly 40 years, ever since 1979, when I was just 21. And I can tell you, time was men like me ran the Sasquatch show. Of course, no one really runs the show, mind you. Sasquatch and Sasquatch alone calls the shots. I'm an electrician, and I was born and raised in Clear Creek, Northern California, a town that had little more to it than a post office and a country store. And I live now, and I'm going to die someday, a 5-hour drive northwest in Orleans, a town that has little more to it than a post office and a country store. That kind of guy used to call the tune in the Sasquatch biz. Now it's the PhDs. They're creating websites of their own, they're writing books, they've got fancy conferences, and now they're starting in with research centers. Used to be if some local newspaper wanted to comment on something Sasquatchian, a sighting, or some footprints, they'd give someone like me a call. Now they go for a PhD. To them, that degree is holy, more powerful than all the skills and experience in the world put together. Thinking about all this just depressed the hell out of me, and I thought about calling Dolly. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, maybe because woman-wise I've come up empty ever since me and my second wife got divorced 15 years ago. Dolly's my first wife, although if you want to believe the goddamn Catholic Church, we were never married. That ceremony back in 1986 isn't a memory, but a crazy delusion. It never happened. The church was empty that day, I suppose. And Annie and Reese are literally nothing but bastards. The annulment hearing lasted about 10 minutes. The priest asked me if I believed in this fantastical creature at the time of my marriage. Now, some of my friends suggested maybe pretending I didn't, but no way was I going that route. It would have felt too much like agreeing that Sasquatch really was something only a backwoods wacko would put any kind of faith in. Of course, I said, just like I believe in God himself. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Dolly bend her forehead to her hand like she had a headache. The priest in the middle kind of squinted at me. Even though it's imaginary, he said. How do you know it's imaginary? I asked. It hasn't been proven to exist, the priest said. Just like God, I said. The priest in the middle just looked at the priest to his right and then at the priest to his left. Well, he said, I don't think we need to hear any more, do you? And the other two just shook their heads smugly, like nothing could be more satisfying than wiping my marriage from the face of the earth. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ted. I love this story.
Thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure now to introduce Charles Hood. Charles is a frequent contributor to Catamaran and is the author of the award-winning essay collection, A Salad Only the Devil Would Eat, as well as a new book, Wild Sonoma, which has a foreword by Jane Goodall. Please welcome Charles Hood, and I'm going to be reading with him.
Hey, thank you all. What a great evening and what an honor. We've all said it, but it's so true to be with such distinguished.
Uh-oh. Come back, Charles. Oops. Send a new link.
Hey, we'll try it again. Maybe I should skip this. So I was going to say poetry should be in conversation. And the poem in Catamaran is in conversation with John Ashbery's Litany, yay, and with Galway Canal has a poem about Shelley, and I won't say anything more than that. And Elizabeth Mackenzie is an editor, but also a writer. She has a novel coming out, I believe, in March. Is that what I remember correctly?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So you all should remember her name, Elizabeth Mackenzie, a writer worth knowing. So there's a poem in Catamaran. It's complicated because that's what it is. And when I went to graduate school, I was studying these people that I really admired, and I was trying to puzzle my way through Anne Sexton, Sylvia Plath, Hemingway, of course, Berryman, Hart Crane, people who had taken their own lives. And then that's in juxtaposition to all these artists. Of course, we know Diane Arbus as an artist, and also, Robin Williams, but even people that are less well known. Spalding Gray, anyone remember the actor and monologuist Spalding Gray who took his own life? And Francesca Woodman. It's just all these artists were out there, and I was trying to write about that. And then I realized as I was working on the poem, oh, what about you, Hood, the author? What are you not talking about? Because I've faced these dark times too. So that's where the poem came out. It's in alternating lines, regular font, italic font, and Lisa Elizabeth Mackenzie, editor, novelist, and very nice person, has agreed to read the regular font lines and I'll read the italics lines, and they cross over each other and blend into each other and then break apart. But they, if read separately, they make a coherent whole left and right. And I got that from John Ashbery's Litany and other sources. So let's make magic happen. And so this is on page 97. It's a lot easier to follow along than to hear it, I think, is that's what I think. So we're here just to annoy you and tell you to read the book. All right, the title of it, and the title's long and pretentious. It's like I should just get off right now. Like who writes titles like this? And who publishes long, like okay, poets, write short poems. If you want to get published, write short poems, because long poems are really the B word, try to get published. Anyway, the long title for the long poem, like Holly Hunter as Ada McGrath in The Piano, I Chose Life.
In 1971, Diane Arbus was found dead in her home bathtub by Marvin Israel.
Compare, for example, The Death of Marat by Jacques-Louis David, or Dead Ophelia floating in
A Painter Who Was Sleeping with Doom, Diane Arbus's daughter, and also Diane.
The River is painted by John Everett Millay, featuring Elizabeth Seidel.
And probably with his wife, Margie. Arbus was sleeping with Howard Nemerov,
who was married to Rossetti and probably addicted to laudanum.
The poet, who was also married and who was her brother. Diane Arbus took
the Ophelia painting is a top draw at Tate Britain, though less so than
pills and slit her wrists with a razor blade, and what she wrote in the final pages
when it was first painted. In Greg Crutzen's photographic homage
of her diary, we cannot know, since somebody, perhaps Marvin or Howard,
or another artist who admits he was influenced by Diane Arbus,
perhaps Dune even, cut them away, also with a razor blade. You know.
Ophelia's river is somehow the flooded downstairs of a house.
Her ex-husband, he's the psychiatrist who helps Alan Alda in MASH, and it was
a nice house, middle to maybe upper middle class.
Nice he finally helped somebody, even if only on television, though it is unfair to blame.
Radiation proof the way that the 1950s to 1970s seem now.
Anybody except Arbus herself, since we all have free agency, and even
a house I would like to live in, even if it does have a dead person.
Walker Evans had tried to convince her that she was the greatest photographer living.
Today, I woke up ready to count all the good things about art.
After himself, of course. Richard Avedon said so too, and Robert Frank.
And there were so many, I stopped at 50.
John Sarkowski at MoMA said it, and he worked at a museum.
Not always like that. For a long time, the sum was nil.
So he should know. Solo shows and praise. What more does a person need?
What is 0 times 0 divided by 0? Go ahead, I'm taking notes.
Peace, calm, everything. Richard Avedon flew to France to tell Dune.
Arbus's story is too much like Sylvia Plath's life, edited by Ted Hughes.
In person, about her mother's death. They came back, drove.
Cruelly and badly, post-mortem, as another man covers his keister.
All night to New Hampshire to tell Dune's sister Amy.
Or tries to, but in the end, history always finds out anyway.
Who, though, will tell us? Because nobody can, because it is not.
Pills or guns. Suicide in our culture is always gendered.
True, because she cannot be dead, because we need her to make.
And in my case, it would have been both. Yet in the end, I chose life.
More work, better work. And I need her to find a way to live.
And most days now, most days, though not all, I am very glad of that.
Forever, if not for her sake, Jesus, then at least for mine.
Namaste. Thank you, Catamaran. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you to our audience members.
Thank you, Charles.
Wow, you guys are a couple of actors and actresses. I think that you really brought that poem to life in the dialogue. Thank you. Okay, well, that concludes our winter launch event. So be sure to buy the winter issue and read all the rest of those wonderful stories and more poetry and writing. And Thank you for joining us tonight, and have a happy holiday, everyone.
Yeah,
Good
thank you
evening.
everybody for being here.
Thanks, Charles. Once again, beautiful work.
Yeah.
Yes, Feliz Navidad, and thank you everyone for being here. The video will be online too after this, if you want to share it.
Okay, great. Bye.
Bye.